welcome to Bettering Our Community. I'm your host, Tiffany Dunyan, and today I have in studio with us representatives of the American Red Cross, Cheryl Sanborn.
Hello, Tiffany.
Hello.
Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to speak with you and bring this information to the community because there's so much of it.
Yeah, there is a lot to understand. Yes, yes, I agree.
Can you tell us more about yourself and your affiliation with the Red Cross?
Sure. I'm the manager of volunteer services for biomed or blood services. And what that means is that I work with Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont to help recruit volunteers, make sure that they're scheduled for activities within the biomed or blood services side of the Red Cross, and then to help keep them engaged and retain those volunteers for as long as they're available. So I work with a team of 3, and you know, today's focus here in Derry is wonderful because there's so much going on that we're hoping to help out with on the volunteer side.
That's wonderful. Can you elaborate on some of the things that you're wanting to work with?
Oh, sure. Yes. There are kind of 2 roles right off the top of my head that I'd love some help with as far as volunteering goes. One is what's called a donor ambassador. And basically that's a person who's at a blood drive. They're the first folks who are greeting donors, making them feel welcome, making sure that those donors are comfortable and not nervous, making sure that they're checked in and that we have their information, and then hopefully moving them quickly through the process so that they get to the paid staff who are doing the health history and the mini physical and then the actual blood collection. The other donor ambassador role is at the end of the process where that donor is finished donating blood and needs to get some more liquids in, needs to have a little snack, give a little time to make sure they're feeling okay once they've actually donated. So we have volunteers there that are keeping an eye on that person, make sure they're okay, and keeping them talking so that they're not thinking about the blood they lost, you know, keeping it safe. Right. Yes. And so volunteers at both those roles are donor ambassadors. And then the second volunteer position that we're looking to fill today is a volunteer driver. And that's the person who is coming to our office in Manchester in the morning, usually 7 o'clock, grabs the boxes of blood that have already been processed. They're all taped shut, but he or she grabs those boxes, loads them into a vehicle, and drives them to where they're really, truly saving someone's life at a hospital. And so the hospital has an order in for X amount of O negative, let's say, and they're waiting for that to arrive so that this person can have an operation, or another person might be fighting for their life in lots of different ways against diseases or against accidents. So those drivers are key to the whole blood cycle process.
Well, it sounds like it's very rewarding volunteer work.
Oh, yeah, especially because, you know, in the donor ambassador where we're collecting the blood, it's a lot of people interaction, a lot of dealing with the public and things along those lines. On the delivery side, it's really, and you know, I used this phrase when I talked to your team, it's where the rubber hits the road, and you know, pardon the pun, but that's literally where it is, and that's where that final process of what happens to the blood, it takes place right then. You know, we're giving that life-saving product to the hospital to use, so it's wonderful.
It's a very important role.
It is.
Sounds like.
It is. It takes a lot of responsibility. People need to make sure they're there every time, or they need to speak up if something's wrong with when they get there. You know, if there's not a manifest, or they don't know there are too many boxes, something's wrong here, or not enough boxes. Mm-hmm. They need to be able to pick up the phone and say, I need some help with this. But mostly it's get there, load up the vehicle, and take it to the hospital.
So it sounds like you have a little bit of something for everybody, whether introverts or extroverts.
That's correct. That's correct. Some of the other roles that we'd love to have people think about, we do community outreach, and that might be doing something like what you and I are doing today, but instead of me as a paid staff person, would be a volunteer talking about his or her experience. Sometimes we'll do events like a health fair or a table at a mall and look to recruit donors for a particular blood drive. So that would be a community outreach role. Often we have volunteers working in the offices to help with some of the procedures and make sure things are going smoothly. Volunteer proctor is somebody that's helping with our training programs to make sure that the new trainees are getting the information they need and being able to gather as much of that as they can. So we've got a real variety of volunteer roles.
Right. Wow. So it sounds like you mentioned something about training.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that you have a variety of different trainings that
Yes.
the community can benefit from as volunteers.
Yes, there are a few different ways. The Red Cross is very well known. I've been talking a lot about blood services, but the Red Cross is very well known for training programs. We have safety programs, we have AED and CPR training, we have first aid, we have CNA, Certified Nurses Assistant training in Concord.
I did not know.
That's a very strong program. Sometimes we'll do phlebotomy training, which really kind of helps people break into the blood service side of the house. And then, of course, we have all of our lifeguarding and swimming programs as well. So there's lots of ways that people can be involved. And some of the trainers of those programs are volunteers. Some are paid staff, depending on what the skills are, and some are volunteers. So there's lots of ways to be involved.
It sounds like it. So besides the training, which is very beneficial to the volunteers and the skills that they're learning, why should somebody volunteer for the Red Cross?
Why? I guess that they should volunteer because they want to give back, they want to make an impact. Maybe they want to get to know other people. Sometimes it's as tangible and cut and dry as to add to their own resume. You know, our disaster team, for instance, those are the folks who respond in floods or earthquakes. I actually did a disaster response myself this year and went down to the flooding that was happening from Hurricane Matthew and spent 2 weeks helping people in shelters. And so every time a volunteer goes to not only their training ahead of time, but then an actual response, they learn. You know, they add to their resume. That volunteer comes back a different person from when they left. So, you know, both for their own benefit and for the benefit of the mission, you know, that to make sure that we as the Red Cross can continue to deliver those kinds of services. Some of our volunteers are in emergency services, and they go out in the middle of the night here in town if there's a fire, and they provide food and potential shelter. You know, they might set someone up in a hotel or provide for to have cards to help them to be able to pay for food and clothing and things along those lines. But the Red Cross is there, and those are the kinds of trainings to lead up to that and the kind of activities that people would benefit from.
Absolutely. So it sounds like a very supportive community that reaches out. Can you speak to us more about how the Red Cross helps the community, perhaps in ways that the layperson doesn't know?
Well, some of that is what I was describing, the response in the middle of the night. It's just like being a firefighter in many ways. You know, that call comes through, and we need a team of 2 or 3 people to be there, and they provide support for the poor family who might lose their home, and they provide support, food and coffee and things like that for the firefighters and the police officers who are there. So that's something that we might not have known about if you know, unless we horribly had a fire. And you know, our leadership team in Washington got looking at emergency services and what most of that time was being spent on, and most of it is fires. Emergency services are responding to fires most of the time. And as they looked at that, they said, so how do we prevent it? You know, it's great that we're responding, but what do we do to get in front of that? And so now what the Red Cross is doing is installing smoke detectors in anybody's home who, if they own their home and their smoke detectors are more than 7 years old, then it's time to replace them. And the Red Cross provides teams to actually go out to that individual's home. They meet with the family and talk about escape routes and you know, pack, you know, little packs so that they can take it with them. And then while they're there, they actually install however many smoke detectors are needed in that particular home, free of charge.
Wow.
So a team goes out, the team is vetted, they learn what to do and how to do it. They go out to the people's homes, they'll kind of focus on a neighborhood and get those all installed and then go to the next one. That so far across the nation has prevented 100 lives from being lost. So people who, because of that smoke detector, got out, and we're up to a count of over 100 now. The last I heard was 100. So
wow,
it's working, and we're getting there before the fire, you know, and
it's
saving
preventative
those lives. It's preventative instead of
yeah.
reacting. Yes, it's wonderful. So that's
wow.
a neat program that's available right here in Derry, and it's just a matter of calling the Red Cross, and we'll send a team in either to do the community or to do pockets of the community and help with that, or just individuals.
Wow. Now, how old do you have to be to volunteer for the Red Cross?
Some of that depends on the what they're doing.
Sure.
For instance, as a donor ambassador, if it's a high school student, we're looking for them to have some adult support nearby. But any person past 17 or 18 years of age could do any of the donor ambassador. 21 for a driver, because we want to make sure they've got some driving time under their belt.
Yes.
So 21 for a driver. Some of the other roles might require some age limitations, but most 17 and up is really feasible for people.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
So how
a lot of students get their community service time by working with the Red Cross, so that works out very well.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful way for young people, well, people in general, young and old, to experience what it's like to be a helping hand,
right,
and grow and develop skills.
Right, right. And you know, one of the things that we'll do, for instance, the University of New Hampshire has a Red Cross club. Several of our colleges do in the area. And one of the ways that we try and give back to the Red Cross Club, who holds they do smoke alarm installation. That Red Cross Club holds blood drives, big blood drives on campus. So one of the things that we do is we provide reference letters talking about their Red Cross, I say that 3 times, Red Cross Club involvement, and we'll provide that reference letter as the students graduate. So they've got one more piece in their portfolio when they're going out to look for jobs. So it's a nice give and take.
It really is. So they're helping and being helped at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great program.
Wow. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add for those out there in the Derry community?
I think the only other thing I would say is that we do have a lot of volunteers helping out here in Derry. The police department is wonderful. There's a lot of Knights of Columbus and other teams that are helping out. We are looking to register our volunteers where we can so that we can get information to them and help out. And that would be through our website, which is redcross.org/volunteers. So if somebody goes on to that particular website, they can complete that application and be official. So that would be wonderful for anyone who's interested.
That's great. And can you elaborate a little bit on registered volunteers versus unregistered, just so people are clear?
Sure. An unregistered volunteer is somebody who might help out at a blood drive, but they're not, they haven't gone through the background check and the application process and those kinds of things. We're trying to move people toward registering so that we can confidently say this person has been checked out. There's somebody that we can rely on at the canteen. They're getting more training. They're getting more up to the minute information. Our unregistered volunteers are wonderful too. They're terrific. They may not have the latest and greatest information, you know, so when they get to a blood drive, sometimes our poor unregistered volunteers are saying, what is rapid pass? I've never heard that term. You know, whereas a registered volunteer, we would have delivered that information already. So it's really helpful for the volunteers to be registered when they're able.
Well, it sounds like a great way for them to develop more skills as well in a more direct
and document
route.
Their hours and you know, especially if they're contributing because of community service or something like that, then it's all documented right there on the website.
Well, wonderful.
Great.
How can people contact you about volunteering opportunities?
Super. A couple different ways. Could be they can apply directly through the redcross.org/volunteer site. They could call me at my desk number, which is 603-856-5533. Or they can reach out cheryl.sanborn@redcross.org. So any of those ways, and I'll hook them up with either the site or the individual coordinator who's located in our Manchester office.
Well, wonderful. Cheryl,
Great.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's most of what I want to talk about, Tiffany. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. I know I've learned so much.
Good. All right.
Well, I certainly hope you've enjoyed our show today on Bettering Our Community with Cheryl Sanborn of the Red Cross. For Derry Community Television, my name's Tiffany Dunyan. Thank you so much for watching.